Wonderful. Thank you. So as was mentioned, I'm the VP of Analytics and BI from Criteo. And yes, that means the boring data and numbers guy is the only thing standing between you and unlimited quantities of kettle chips. So with that in mind, we'll keep this interesting, we'll be mercifully short, and hopefully leave you with some food for thought about addressing a segment of your user base that may not have been top of mind up to this point. And that's what we like to call the mid-funnel. Just real quick before the formal deck, show of hands, who has a mid-funnel strategy? Great, one person. You can leave. Everyone else, the good news is, as I mentioned, this isn't necessarily something that's top of mind, but it's an important component of a performance display plan. So we'll talk about what is the mid-funnel and how you can use it to better monetize your users. This is actually a nice dovetailing speech with the prior panel. You heard a lot here about content, how to use video, how to get people to the site, how to get engagement up. Great. Once you've got them there, how do we maximize the monetization of that user base? And the mid-funnel talk I'm going to give here is a piece of that plan to maximize the monetization. So with that said, just real quick, who is Criteo? If you're not familiar with us, I'll just give the quick overview. We do performance display. We're not a branding company. We drive sales. This is eTail. This isn't a branding conference, so most of you here have the same goal. How do you drive more sales from your user base, give your users a better experience, all that good stuff. So we're a marketing partner that strives to give the right message at the right time. You've probably heard that from everyone. It's kind of old hat. But there are some important underlying distinctions there in that you also need to pay the right price. You need to have the right cadence. In today's real-time bidding world, you need to have the right technology stack. And we're going to talk about how some of that works and how you layer in advanced approaches like predictive modeling and some other things, and how it relates to the mid-funnel. So who are we by the numbers? We have about 800 employees. We're on a lot of continents, 46 countries. We have about 6,000 publishers and 5,000 clients that work with us. I won't belabor the point. What is the mid-funnel? Let's talk about what really matters here. How do I identify the mid-funnel opportunity for your business? And I say your business because one problem that sometimes creeps into segmentation discussions is people say, oh, I have a segmentation approach. I learned about this thing that my friend does over at retailer X, and I'm going to do the same thing. And to some extent, that's good, because conceptually it's usually right, but the devil's in the details. And I'm going to show some data regarding how the mid-funnel is actually slightly different for all of the retailers that have partnered with Criteo to use it, and how you can sort of take that data and that vantage point and use it to optimize your own mid-funnel. So what is the mid-funnel here? First of all, it is performance marketing. So the mid-funnel is not branding. It is still using all the techniques that work in the lower funnel being the traditional name for people that have been to your site. Maybe they've purchased, maybe they haven't, but they've been to your site, they've engaged at different levels, maybe very lightly, maybe very extensively, and you want to show them advertising to try to continue to monetize them, traditionally for about 30 days since they've been to your site. You're going to do that by combining your advertiser data with a lot of third-party data. And when I say third-party data, that's where that interesting number on the previous slide comes into play, those 5,000 publishers. Because it turns out there's a very big difference between someone who looked at 2 pairs of Crocs on the Crocs website and then went to Oprah.com and bounced around there for 45 minutes, and someone who looked at the same 2 pairs of Crocs and went to 19 different sports sites. And that's an important distinction, because what it means is the most powerful performance display solutions are those that combine the data from your site about your customers and exactly what those people are doing across the entire internet. And so that's really this graphic here, combining advertiser data and third-party data. Finding them, predicting the conversion rate, using very advanced real-time data and analytics, predictive models to see who will click, who will engage, and who will convert. Ultimately, again, our goal is to drive conversions, so the better we can predict where those people are and the propensity of them to convert, the more effective and efficient the marketing can be. Recommendation is a key component of any lower funnel and mid-funnel strategy. Obviously, it makes a lot of sense to show people products that we think they're going to be very interested in. And then creative optimization, kind of that last piece, tying it all together with an image that will be visually appealing and is really the end output of all the data behind it. So we've done this for a lot of years, and we noticed a few things. And the first thing we noticed is that 90% of lower funnel clicks, and again, where lower funnel is that traditional from 0 days out to 30 when someone's been to your site, 90% of those clicks come within 11 days, and this is a study across mostly US Criteo clients, within 11 days. So that's the first interesting fact. The second interesting fact is that once you reach that 11th day, which is where we consider you moving into the mid-funnel, there's an 84% probability that that user will not come back to your site. And when we say not come back, we mean through any mechanism, whether it's their own volition, which you'd probably see as direct in Google Analytics, or no refer in Omniture or something like that, whether it's SEO, whether it's SEM, whether it's paid display. They simply don't come back because they were more lightly engaged. They didn't come back within the first 11 days. There's a pretty good probability you're not going to see them again. So when you combine these two facts, what it means is opportunity. The opportunity is, how do I treat those people differently to get them back, get more of them back, and what do I do after that 11th day? The other fact here that we noticed as we started developing this product was, it turns out there's another interesting fact about those people. Once they get into the mid-funnel, when they then do purchase, the new customer rate, and when I say new customer, I mean in terms of a retailer's vantage point. So new to your file, not in your CRM system, someone that's never made a purchase with you before. Those people are liquid gold, right? We all know them, we love them, because that's your first-time customer. You're going to give them an awesome retail experience, and they're going to come back again and again. So that's a very kind of high-value statistic, that it's 50% higher new customer rate. Not 50% of new customers, but if your normal new customer rate in the lower funnel is, say, 8%, that would mean that 12% of those who re-engage through a mid-funnel plan would likely be new customers. So it's an interesting group. It's a group that can have a lot of value. You're thinking, this sounds like a lot of roses here, Jaysen. As with anything, there's a downside. Because they haven't engaged in the first 11 days, they're a little harder to get back. So you've got to have very good predictive models and underlying technology, and you also need a different ROAS target. If your lower funnel ROAS is, say, 10 to 1, you're probably not going to be able to effectively scale that in the mid-funnel. You might have to drop that to 5 to 1, for example. So there are trade-offs, but it is a very effective way of reaching an audience that you may not have thought about in terms of top of mind thus far. So here's the strategic approach to the mid-funnel. Lower funnel, they've been to your site, let's get more conversions, let's get sales. That's the primary thing we're concerned about. Mid-funnel, they're lapsed. They've been to your site, they know your brand, they didn't necessarily convert. We still want to convert them. More importantly, we see them as a great source of completely new users to build that CRM file. Upper funnel, again, we draw a very hard boundary there. Those are people that have never been to your website or have never been within your records or your vendor partner records. There's a real chasm there in terms of difficulty to get those people to click and convert. So again, the mid-funnel, the hard stop is that it has to be someone who's been to your site. So what is your opportunity? Your opportunity is 0 to n days. We call those visitors and customers. From n to 400, we like to use the word lapsed. Lapsed because it has a connotation of time, and time is a key differentiator of the lower funnel versus the mid-funnel. And lapsed because you'd like to get them back. We tend to think of things that lapse as a subscription or something that, oh, that lapsed, but I'll bring them back into the lower funnel, into the active user set. So this is where the data gets interesting. As the data guy, you know there was only so long I could go before showing a graph. So first graph here, what this says is we went through all the clients that Criteo engages in the mid-funnel with. And it turns out that while that average might be 11 days, there's actually a pretty good spread here. You've got 10%, not a huge amount, but a significant minority of our retail partners where 90% of their clicks occur within 7 days. On the flip side, you've got 20% where it's 17 or more. What that means is, again, while you may have heard from a friend, hey, I'm doing mid-funnel, it sounds like something interesting, why don't you just set it up how I did it? I'm using 8 days. For your business, the right answer might be 15 days. Now, that's not that hard to figure out, but you need to be able to sort through a lot of data. You need to hold data. You need to aggregate data. And you really don't want to use general solutions to specific problems. Even if you have a friend who has the same type of business as you, maybe in the same vertical even, might be your closest competitor, those are not your users. Generally, you've spent a lot of time to differentiate yourself from that other guy. And one of the ways you differentiate yourself, even with the same products, is you may have very different users. And one way that difference materializes itself is in the end days for the mid-funnel. And that's why we strongly encourage you, when you're setting up a mid-funnel plan, figure out where your 90% cut point is, and then use that as your end days, and everything after that, start thinking about those people on a mid-funnel basis. The other graph, and I apologize that this one isn't quite as aesthetically appealing, is we went through a sample of clients and we said, you know, a neat thing about the mid-funnel is you're really greatly expanding your potential reach. Because instead of losing someone when they hit the 31st day, you can keep them almost indefinitely. In our case, it's out to about 400 days because there's actually a European Union data policy directive where you shouldn't store cookie data longer than that. Does that matter if it's 400, 300, 500? Not really, because most of the activity is between N and 120 or 150 days. But in any case, we went and we actually counted up how big is that population for every client, and that's what you see in the graph here. And again, it varies a lot. You have a few people that are sort of outliers at the front where it's under 100%. Most times, that population increase is at least 100% or more. The average is actually 142%, and this is where it gives me an opportunity to get off the stage. Because what that means is if I stand about here, this is your lower funnel. These are all the people you're successfully retargeting. This whole back half of the room is that other 142%, and these are the people that you're missing. Because you don't have a mid-funnel plan, you're not going beyond the 30 days. So how do you capitalize on this? There's a few things that are important. The first thing is what we call conversion optimization. And the reason that's important is because, as we mentioned, in the mid-funnel, it is a little bit harder to get someone to click and convert. That's the nature of targeting someone who's a little bit farther removed in time from that engagement with your site and with your brand. It's not a deal breaker. It just means that you need to know how to handle that difference. How we handle it is through a method called conversion optimization, which is a predictive model that can actually predict the exact probability that someone will convert. Well, if you know that someone has, say, half the probability of converting, that's great, because you can deal with that and you can value them appropriately and sort of sort that entire population into the bucket that most matters to you, and then a lot of sort of the chaff that you're really not interested in, and just ignore them. The other thing is scale. We talked about some big numbers, big increases, 142%. Those are very theoretical. The actual percentage increase that you can get is a function of the scale of your vendor partner and also how much you're willing to change your ROAS goals. If your ROAS goal is about the same, you'll obviously get more of that group. As it gets sort of lower and a little more loose, then you can go deeper into the mid-funnel. Here's another graph. You got to have at least one scatter plot from any statistical person. And apologize if you don't love R-squareds. But the point here is each one of these dots is one of you. Not you exactly, although I'd love to have you all as data points. But each one of these dots is a client. And each client has a conversion rate in both the lower funnel and the mid-funnel. And what you can see here right away, as the bullet point says, is the mid-funnel CR averages about 50% of the lower funnel CR. No shock there. The people are a little harder to engage. They click and convert at a little lower rates. But what's interesting is that 0.7 R-squared really indicates that your lower funnel conversion rate drives most of the variance in your mid-funnel conversion rate, which is great because if you look at some of the high data points, you've got a client that has maybe an 18% conversion rate in the lower funnel, and they're still getting 8 or 10 in the mid-funnel. So if you're good at converting people in the lower funnel, if you've got the videos, if you've got the reviews, if you've got the content, if you've made all these investments to increase the conversion rate in the lower funnel, those benefits are going to propagate right through into the mid-funnel. That's, again, one reason we like the mid-funnel as a marketing approach, because it leverages a lot of work that you're doing already because it's just good business. Finally, the other thing about the mid-funnel is we experimented with kind of the branding concept of, do we just show a generic ad? Do we just show a really incredible, beautiful, visual appealing ad for a given client? Or do we take the same lower funnel approach where we show dynamic creative, where we analyze everything the person looked at, where we look at similar and complementary products, and we actually A/B tested this 50-50 on an even random cookie pool split. Dynamic creative blew the static away. Blew the static away. Even people that are 30, 45, 60, 90 days out, it's still much more appealing to them to have dynamic, real-time generated creative than some sort of static ad. So we made a whole slide just to sort of prove, not really prove, but demonstrate that point. When you do a mid-funnel strategy, you still want to do dynamic creative. I have one very brief case study here just to talk about some specific numbers. This is actually for a US sports retailer, a lot of apparel, but some other categories. And you can see the interesting thing here is that sales went up about 29%, and that 29% increase is over the lower funnel post-click sales number, which is a common way that performance display vendors measure the sales that they bring to you is on a post-click basis. 29% increase. Note, two distinct ROAS targets. Client originally came to us and said, I need you to hit a 12-to-1 lower funnel, but I'm interested in the mid-funnel. I realize that I'm going to have to relax that. I realize I'm going to get more new customers as a percent of the whole. I'm willing to go 4-to-1. Now, that's a big difference, and I get that, and these numbers are all customizable, and you should think about what makes sense for your own particular business models. But when we ran the plan, we came back 14-to-1 lower, 4.4-to-1 mid, about the ratios that we expected there, and that was enough to get a 29% increase in sales, obviously beating the defined target ROAS by about 15%. The point here is that 29% is a function of the difference between the lower and the mid. You could have gone out into the mid and said, you know what, just my business model, I don't really need a lot of sales. I really need to hit 12-to-1, but you wouldn't get that 29%. The more you can relax it, the more you can go out into that mid-funnel and effectively bring people in. And you want a solution that gives you that knob so that it's completely under your control. As we all know, some months your directive might be, get me sales. I'm willing to sacrifice a little on margin and ROAS. Other months, you just may need the ROAS. So sort of quick summary here. We think the mid-funnel, the idea of re-engaging people that have lapsed is a powerful strategy for driving both new customer growth and also for bringing in additional conversions, sort of combining 1 and 4. The sweet spot is unique for every marketer. Key point. Really think about where's your end. Are you a 7-day business or are you a 23-day business? Once you know that, then you can figure out how to structure the program appropriately. And then make sure, in order to get maximum efficiently, you need to be going back up the funnel with dynamic creative, with extensive predictive models, and with a real solid conversion optimization partner because the conversion rate is lower in the mid-funnel. Thank you.